All right, guys, this gives a kind of a modern day perspective of how most drivers feel about brokers. Um, it's a common feeling that permeates throughout the entire industry. I think, in my opinion, it's misplaced and it's unfair. That's just like, and this is the sentiment that is felt with most brokers, almost all drivers feel this way about brokers, no matter what. They just put all the brokers in one category and say that brokers are no good for the industry and that they can do without them. And I, in my opinion, think that's an unfair tag that's been put on brokerage companies. All of them are not the same. Uh, and I just think it's a misplaced theory. And we're going to go into it. We're going to break it down. We're going to see why drivers feel this way. And then we're going to analyze the situation for ourselves. All right. So let's get started.
Number five, load brokers. Now, load brokers are nothing more than middlemen that stand between the shipper and the trucking company or the truck driver. And these guys have really been able to dig in and establish themselves in the trucking industry in the last 20 years. And it's unbelievable because they're non-essential. They've just been able to worm their way in there somehow, and they take huge chunks of profit for themselves. They take as much money off the rate, the freight rate, as they think they can get away with. And they steal millions of dollars from truck drivers every year. A load broker's goal, his number one goal, is to take as much money as he possibly can get away with out of the rate so the load moves as cheaply as possible. He pockets as much as he possibly can. The truck moves for as little as it possibly can, and sometimes at a loss. These guys are non governed. There are no laws governing the transparency of them right now. We've been pushing for them for years, but right now they just have a license to steal money, and steal money they do. The number four biggest scam, unpaid resets away from home. Now, truck driving used to pay so well that when you finally burned out at the end of the day, when you got to
All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to examine uh, different elements of what he's talking about are the biggest scams within the trucking industry. So number one he mentioned was brokers. He was saying that brokers get the loads and they break off or as much of they take as much of the load as they personally can for their profit. So, in other words, if a load is paying, if they find a load from a shipper that's paying $2,000, they may take 20% of that uh, before they pass the load on to the driver. So, if the load's paying 2,000 and they take 400, then the driver's only getting the load for 1,600. Whereas from his perspective, the driver should be getting the full amount of what the load is paying. And I understand how he's, coming to his logic. And there are driver brokerage firms out there that take too much of the profit. And there's also what's called double brokering going on in the industry. But to say that a broker has no place in the industry or that a broker is stealing money from the truck driver, I think is a bit extreme. And I don't understand how you could come to that analysis. Uh, First of all, it'd be different if you, as the driver, could sit here on some type of platform, whether it be a load board or phone calls with direct shippers, and get the exact same loads that the broker can get. The problem is we as drivers don't have access to those things. You don't have the relationships with the shippers. You don't have the access to certain loads that they have access to. So how are they stealing money from you that you never had access to? The definition of stealing something from someone uh, is something that actually belongs to you that someone has taken from you. Well, you never had an opportunity to even look at the load. You never had an opportunity to accept or reject the load. So, in that aspect, you're uh, putting a dark cloud over a broker and accusing, just lumping them all together and accusing brokers of stealing from the drivers when you never had the opportunity to what are they stealing from you? So that's, and I've been a driver. I am a driver. Driver's in my blood, but at the same time, I have the sane ability to you know uh, put everything in its proper perspective. Now, say for instance, there's a lot of deregulation in the industry, and the new administration just come in and say, okay, we no longer need brokers. You drivers can deal with the shippers directly. We don't need brokers. You get your own loads. Do you honestly think companies like Walmart and like Costco are going to deal with individual drivers on a daily basis? You got to think about what you're asking for and how it's going to play out. I in no In this world that we live in, I cannot visualize a world where Walmart deals with millions of different individual truck drivers. I just can't foresee that happening. They don't have the time, and they don't want to dedicate resources to doing that. I can see Walmart dealing with individual carriers that are huge, that maybe have like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of drivers. So if in turn that happens, and the reason I'm doing this video is, if I'm wrong in my analogy and how I'm theorizing everything, I need somebody to put me into a different perspective and help me understand how that's going to help benefit the small driver. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the mega carriers. We're talking about what he's talking about, in my opinion, is the little man being held down because of brokers. So if we deregulate if the new administration comes in and we change how the industry operates, brokers are no longer needed, or they don't have the same kind of access that they had before. How is that going to help the small driver? Because from what we've seen in every type of industry across the board, if something if you take out one entity, another entity takes over, takes its place. It's like you create a vacuum and somebody comes in to fill the vacuum. Am I right? For instance, in the drug industry, in the drug cartels in the industry, you take out one drug lord, another one or comes in and takes his place, or another faction comes in and takes the place, another rival gang comes in and takes that place. So you never get rid of the problem. You just transfer it to something else. So, in my opinion, if you remove brokers, all you're going to do is create more mega carriers. And in turn, the mega carriers, in my opinion, are going to drive the market down because they'll be able to move the freight at a lesser price. And then, how is the mom and pop or the small operator going to compete with that? You're either going to have to get those loads from a mega carrier, or you're going to have to drop your own authority and drive and lease on or drive for or get loads as an owner operator from a mega carrier. So I just don't understand the concept of why people hate brokers. So uh, it'd be different, in my opinion, if a broker took a load that you could have gotten on your own. 9 times out of 10, without a broker, you would never even know that particular load exists. So I don't understand the logic there. I can understand the sentiment, but I can't understand the logic behind what you're saying. So uh, I don't know. I feel like you'd be trading one problem for another, and I am all for transparency now. Uh, to a certain degree, I'm for transparency to a certain degree. Everybody, there's enough money for everybody, and I happen to work in the past and presently with a great broker out of Minnesota that I know or I feel like will do the right thing uh, for me. I understand the way economics work. They've got to get their share. They've got employees they got to pay. They've got to show profits. They've got to do this. They've got to do that. They've built the relationships with the shipper. If you want more, get your butt out there and see how difficult it is to build relationships with shippers. Get your behind up every morning, do the cold calling, try to get through the gatekeeper, make the calls, the follow up emails, go, just chase down all the leads you have, and then let's see how much money you want to make for doing all that. So if you're not satisfied with the how the process works, there's always something you can do. You can do it yourself. You can go out there and try to get the shippers on your own. I've done it. Other people have done it. I've had to make the cold calls, the follow up emails. I've had to solicit and get rejected, and do it for yourself. I just don't understand uh, people's hatred for brokers. Um, if you don't like something, do it yourself, because if you get out there and put the work in, you can do the same thing they're doing. Now, will you have the same level of success? That's another story, because all of this is built on what you can accomplish. Now, when you go out there and you start talking to these shippers, it's all about who you are. It's all about your salesmanship. It's all about how you sell yourself and your company. And you'll find out it's not as easy as you think. When all you have to do is get on a load board, or all you have to do is accept a phone call and say, "Hey, do you want this load or not?" So it's not. Don't let individual truck drivers, and I can speak on this. I'm qualified to speak on this because I was a top earner as a truck driver. I worked with thousands of truck drivers, and I finished in the top 10 of my particular company's division multiple times. So I'm qualified to speak on this. Don't let drivers poison your mentality about brokers and dispatchers, and not necessarily dispatchers, because their beef is not with them, it's with the brokers. Because if you do, you're only looking at one side of the story, because they're not going to give you any loads. I can promise you that. If the brokers are out of the picture, they're not going to help you get loads. So we're asking for something that we have just one side of the story on. Now, if you want to uh, add a little bit more transparency to the industry, I'm all for that. But don't let anyone turn you against brokers. Just be careful of the brokers and the dispatchers that you do business with. And make sure you're getting your fair shake on the load. Uh, I don't have to know what a load is originally paying for me to say that I'm going to accept it. All I got to do is make sure the load's good enough for me and what I'm trying to achieve. And see, I can't worry about what's going in someone else's pocket. I got to watch my own pocket. So I just need to make sure I'm getting mine. You feel me, Maverick?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just got to make sure I'm getting mine. And I think that's one of the major problems in the industry. Everybody's trying to watch everybody else's pocket and what they
Mm.
putting in, when you need to know. And first of all, they'd make more money if they did the math, basic math. If you watch your fuel you burn, if you go particular routes, if you know what the national average and the rates are on different loads and things you got going on, then you'll make more money. But you got to be careful of who you take your advice from. You got to be careful of who you take your advice from, and you got to wonder, okay, if you got to ask yourself, if this happens, then what's next? See, they just want brokers gone. Okay, what's next? And then they don't have a solution after that. They think that the loads are automatically going to come to them. And Walmart and Costco and them big boys, they don't have time to be dealing with little drivers that got one truck, two trucks, three trucks, four trucks, five trucks. You got 10 trucks. Walmart might say okay. They might give you a little business, but if you got one or two trucks, man, they ain't trying to talk to you. When they sending out millions in volume and you want them to, deal with thousands of different drivers, it's just not realistic, you know. And me, I always try to live in today. I try to live in today's time, and as far as what's really going on. Um, if we can change certain things, I'm all for that. But change all the time is not good. You know, change don't always mean it's going to get better for me. It may get better for somebody. It may get better for a company like Swift. It may get better for a company like CR England. It may get, better for a company like Prime. You know, it may get better for a company like Averett. You know, all those different how it's going to get better for me. I pick up the phone, try to call Walmart. They're going to tell me the same thing that they've been telling me, forever. So that's just my thought. I'm glad you was able to join back with us, man. You got your camera and all going.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh,
I
it's cool.
apparently I had to restart the whole computer.
It's
So
cool. You just wanted me to talk to myself, I guess, but that's all right. That's all right.
no, I'm
It
here.
all
I'm
works.
here, brother.
Yeah, but
But that's a good point. It's a good point you brought up, though.
yeah, man. Everybody, that's why I always and drivers need to stop going to Facebook for their answers, man. Ain't nothing in Facebook gonna help you. You know, that's another thing. Nothing on Facebook out there is going to help you. They're not there to help you. They're there to make fun of you, and they're there to give you their personal opinion.
Hmm.
And my daddy had an old saying about opinions. You know, my daddy said opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Everybody has one.
Everybody's got one. So you got to be careful. That's just that particular person's perspective. You know, maybe from his lack of success. That's his
Hmm.
perspective. You know, but I don't know, man. That's just and that's just my personal opinion, but it's my personal opinion based upon having done very well in the industry and having dealt with several different brokers. And I kind of see where the faults are and where the good points lie, because I tell you, these drivers that are saying that, man, they're not going to get out there and do all the work.
Hmm.
You know, that takes sometimes, man, it takes 6 months to a year to close a shipper. They don't understand that. They think if the brokers go away, they just automatically gonna get that business. Man, it takes 6 months to a year to close a shipper to try to get their business sometime. First of all, they have another company in place already when you get there. And then you got to try to point out they may not be dissatisfied. You got to show them where they can get better service if they deal with you. And sometimes they're on contracts with these different, you know, companies or these different carriers. They're on contracts with them. They're on contracts with certain lanes, and usually those contracts may run for 6 months, a year, or whatever. So you can't just go out and flip them like that. So these drivers getting on here with their personal opinions, you know, have any of them ever went out there and really tried to get to shippers? That's the first thing you need to ask them. You know, what has their experience been like going to Walmart? Don't just say any shippers that push out a few loads. Say, what has been your experience going to companies like Walmart and Costco, and you know, uh, what have they been telling you when you try to get their business? You need to ask them questions like that. You know, I don't know, but that's just my personal perspective, man. What's your opinion on it?
Tell me.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a baby at this. I'm brand new to the whole trucking industry, but as far as what I'm learning, yeah, that point is valid. I don't think that cutting brokers out is the answer. I think if you're looking at it from, like you said, his perspective, where maybe he wasn't as successful, or he got involved in some sort of scam, then yeah, I could see how he can come to that conclusion. But
yeah,
looking at the bigger picture, brokers are needed. My,
Yeah.
it's simple to say. Walmart. If you're just talking about one company that needs truckers, that deals with truckers, they're not going to deal with individual truckers. It has to be
Right.
done through an organization like
Right.
broker. So yeah,
And you see what I mean by, like, if brokers are gone, somebody gonna fill that void. It's the mega carriers
oh,
that's gonna fill that void, and they're
definitely.
they're waiting on it.
And they're waiting on it. That's the
They're
point.
waiting on it. Yeah. And see what a lot of people don't know is that these mega carriers are freaking brokers anyway. These
Mhm.
mega carriers have brokerage companies that operate under separate entities anyway. Anyway, Swift has its own brokerage side. You see what
Right.
I'm saying? They're not just going on load boards and calling loads. No, they have people that have went out, that have created their own book of business with shippers, and they have created companies as separate entities from their transportation companies. You see what I'm saying? It's a whole
Mhm.
different entity, but people don't have a proper understanding of how this industry works, man. And they're taking out their frustration on the wrong entity, you know?
Right.
Now there are brokers that try to get too much. Of course, you're gonna have that, you know. And then there are people that try to double broker loads. Of course, I know that. See, that's why I'm glad we do things how we do. We get the loads from the brokers, the direct shippers, and the load boards. Those are our three avenues of getting our loads to give to drivers. Ellick
Mhm.
BPO Solutions. And so what we do from there, we just charge a flat monthly fee. I don't want nothing out of every load. I just want you to pay me a flat monthly fee every month, uh, and then you can get. I don't care if you get 40,000 in loads from us every month. Let's do a realistic number. Let's say 25 to 30,000. That's a realistic number that you can get from us every month in loads. I don't care if you get that number. I just want that set flat fee of $289.99 a month to
Right.
dispatch your loads, to handle your invoicing and all that. And then the rest, what you get, that's you, that's on you. And we're going to try to maximize how much we can give you. So that's where we're a little different at. That's what I pride ourselves on. We have the relationships with the broker, some shippers, and the load boards, internal load boards that everybody use, which have a lot of crap on them. You know, we have access to that, but uh, that's where I feel like we don't get lumped into this discussion as far as, why people hate brokers and things like that. We charge a flat fee. You get as much out of that as you possibly can. We're going to try to give you as much as we possibly can. And we charge a flat fee of $289. You don't pay that until you actually get dispatched, or till we actually not get dispatched, till we actually book you on your first load. That's when you pay that. And that carries you for 30 days. That carries you for the entire 30 days. So, uh, and we keep pumping them out to you as much as we can, as wherever you want to go. We try to, take you wherever you want to go. I personally like to keep my drivers wherever you are. I try to at least get you through the southeast a little bit, because the fuel there is pretty good, the terrain there is pretty good, the weather there is pretty good, so I can constantly keep you moving. Um, and I constantly know where the loads are in the southeast area. Now, if you want to go northeast, west, I can help you do that too. If you need to get from those areas and trying to get to the southeast, I can get you there too. But I just wanted to talk about this subject, man, for a few minutes, to try to give those that have been driving, even those that have been driving a long time, they have a misconception about brokers and the industry itself. Just because you've been doing something a long time doesn't mean you know everything about that.
Right.
And you may know everything about driving, about trucking, and about mechanics and things like that. But there's different nuances in the business arena that if you don't do your proper research, and if you don't keep yourself well informed and have relationships with these different entities that you're talking about, then you're speaking and you're operating with a lack of knowledge.
Right.
And my daddy always told me, man, the most dangerous individual in the world is one that operates with a lack of knowledge or that speaks out of ignorance. So
Spread
I
misinformation.
yeah, she spread misinformation, or you spread information based upon your particular set of circumstances. That's like me talking about China, and I ain't never been to China.
Right.
I've never experienced the culture and anything like that, and I have been. That's why I have been to China. I've been to different places in China, Beijing, Xiamen, all over China, and I've experienced what that culture is like. So when they come up with something on news and they're talking about different places as a whole, and I've been there, then I can kind of operate from a different perspective. I can say, well, yeah, you're right about that. They are like that, but they ain't like this. They ain't as bad as you say. Uh, or that's like you've been to different parts of the US, and then when you hear somebody talk about California or someplace you've been, and they talk about it in a negative light, and they wrong, you like, nah, this person don't know what they talking about.
Yeah, they do that about the Philippines.
Yeah, all the time, all the time, yeah, all the time. So, and then, people in the Philippines have this perception about the US, and we know better because we've lived there. you know
Yeah.
we know, yeah. So, but it is what it is, man. All we can do is try to put information out there and keep on plugging along. But
Yes.
anyway, all right, man. I'm gonna just set this little video out there, and hopefully it'll help somebody. If you need any help with your dispatching service, guys, or if you're interested in anything that we can provide, you can go to theperfectdispatcher.com. That's our website, and you can find out more information about us. You can also find out more information about our dispatching services. Uh, if you are actually a work from home agent with us, you have the opportunity to tap into our tools and resources that we have available. Um, we have drivers that you are able to actually look on there and see the drivers, who they are. You're able to try to get loads, build up your book of business through our drivers. That's one good thing about it. Um, so go to theperfectdispatcher.com. If you're interested in obtaining our dispatching services, you would go to the actual tab that says dispatching services. If you're interested in being one of our work from home agents, like Maverick here is, you can go to Start Work Today to schedule your interview and appointment and things like that. You'll take our training course, and then after the course, once you complete it, successfully complete it, you have the opportunity to be hired on directly and become one of our work from home agents and actually get paid to do this. All right, Maverick, we
All right,
shall get
Tyler.
together. We'll find something else to talk about in the future. Always
Right on.
something
Right
going
on.
down in the industry. All right, bro. I'll catch up with you.
All right, boss.
All right.
In a minute.